Search is extremely important. Everyone knows that. It's the number one way that drivers look for jobs. Correct?
Correct.
Why is search so important to someone who is advertising a job, specifically a driving job? Harkening back to the last episode of Digging Deeper, we talked about your reputation. How much does reputation play into your branding search?
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, let's begin. Let's begin.
Ready?
All right. Welcome back to Digging Deeper. It's been a while. As you can see, we took some time off to build a new set. Yes, I built it.
Yeah. Am I right? Am I right, Lord?
And we're back with Aaron Mowrey. I'm David Arsenault, as usual. Aaron Mowrey, give your title to the people.
Vice President of Strategic Accounts.
And you work solely with fleets, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just
Fleets and the team internally helping those fleets.
Okay. Can you use that?
You disgust everyone.
I better not sip during the thing. All right. So today's episode is brought to you by Search. So on our last episode, we talked about the currency of fleet reputation. Link here. Sorry, Josh. And then you were watching the episode and you said, I think we should do an entire episode. Sorry, I messed up there. We talked about currency of reputation, how that can relate to search, like Google search, not just searching out in the land.
Good to know.
Right.
And you said we can do an entire episode just around search. So my question to you would be, why?
Just revisiting the last episode, in case some people didn't see it, I think it's centered around, referrals and rehires and how that affects your hiring based off your brand name.
Right.
It's probably important to cover as well the search aspect of your brand name. So that's kind of the gist.
Okay. So why is search so important to someone who is advertising a job, specifically a driving job?
Sure. Common sense, anybody who's watching is thinking, we all know search is a big deal, but it just keeps growing. I mean, when we do our surveys and we ask where do drivers go when they're looking for a job, it's number one. And then I don't remember the exact number, 80% or so of drivers have Android devices, and Google search specifically becomes pre-installed. So it's their default browser. Or Chrome is their default browser. Search.
Yeah, I never even thought about that as, as things become increasingly mobile, the default, most people have a default browser that they search with.
Right.
I didn't think about that. Good point.
Yeah. And we're also monitoring, what kind of phrases they're looking at. So much of it's localized search, not just trucking jobs, but more specific.
Right.
So obviously brand's a big piece of that.
So we know why search is important, but search is a broad topic,
right?
Obviously. So let's break it down. We said we want to talk about the three main types of search advertising. So we have brand search. I'm kind of imagining you making things pop up as I say this. Brand search, competitive search, and general search. Why don't you give us a quick down and dirty definition of each of those?
So brand search would just be the brand name of that company, the keywords that associate their company name,
right.
Even misspellings. So I don't know if we're using examples, but Melton Truck Lines is the name of the company.
Right.
But when you look at the kind of the keyword data, Melton Trucking and Melton Transportation actually get searched more often than Melton Truck Lines. So.
Same, but different.
Interesting. All right. Competitive search. How would you define that?
Anybody that falls in your segment, that if they would drive for you, they could and should potentially be interested in these 10, 15 competitors as well. So,
now, is segment defined kind of by the type of freight you haul, or is it more the area you're in, or what? Or both? A little bit of both?
A good partner should know you as a company, and it would be a lot of that.
Okay.
Could be the location.
Right.
Could be the driver type, and it could be the type of haul.
All right. And then finally, general search. How would you define that?
Yeah, just really broad. truck driving jobs, trucking jobs, flatbed jobs, just nothing specific, but different than Uber. So if someone types in CDLA driving jobs, that's still a very valuable term,
Right.
just very broad.
Yep. Now, would you still consider if someone's saying like local driving jobs, do you still consider that general search as it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, let's go back and start with brand search. Is brand search the starting point for someone? Let's say I don't have a search budget at all. Is brand search the starting point,
Absolutely.
and why?
You need to own your name. And
What does that mean, own your name?
the way Google works, forgive me if I may mess it up on mobile versus desktop, but I think it's three paid ads at the top, and then another three after. You got organic after that, and then another three at the bottom, all on page one. I can't remember if that's exactly correct on mobile. Anybody that's going to type in Melton trucking jobs or Werner trucking jobs, you want to own that spot. You want to buy that spot at the top, because if you don't, someone else will, which is what we'll get to in a minute. Competitor search. And it's very inexpensive.
Right. Oh, that's good. That's what I was going to ask. Because because that is your brand, bidding on your own name, this traffic would be cheaper.
Yes, correct. Your broad general terms are more expensive. It's a bidding process and the algorithms and all that come into play. But truck driving jobs maybe searched 200,000 times, so it's going to cost more than a small brand name is going to maybe be searched a couple hundred times, so it's not going to be as expensive.
Have you run into how complex, if we talk about brand search, have you run into people trying to do that in-house and still not doing a good job? I mean, is it simple or does it still have some complexities that you need to know what you're doing?
So this is the asterisk that maybe we can throw out, that I've never actually run a campaign in my life. This is your typical sales guy talking about high level.
But you see this.
I do. I'm in there all the time. I look at the data. But for me to say it's really easy or it's really difficult, I haven't done it.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
But I have seen client meetings where, they'll take 7 or 8 of their brand terms and dump it into a keyword, Google keyword tool, and maybe even do the little AI where it builds the ads for them, and then they set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it.
And that's terrible. I mean, that is not ideal. So yes, I've seen people try and not succeed at it. Obviously, you can do it, and you can do it well, but there is a lot of complexity to it instead of just picking a few keywords.
Harkening back to the last episode of Digging Deeper, we talked about your reputation. How much does reputation play into your branded search?
In any given segment, just flatbed, for instance, or auto haul, I'm trying to pick something that's a little bit, not as common. You're going to have competitors in that segment, other flatbed carriers, other auto haul carriers. Some have a better brand name than others, whether it be just a smaller company with a good family atmosphere or really good benefits that turnover's low or pay is good. So yeah, your brand plays a big part in how many people are going to search you, and obviously your qualifications, everything, what kind of equipment you have, all of that.
When it comes to the ad creative, you talked about kind of AI programs coming up with ad copy.
Right.
What if you are running branded search? What is the important part when it comes to, or how would you prioritize your ad copy? What is the important things to have in there?
Gosh, that's a whole segment actually.
Write that down.
Potentially talk about ad creative and what that looks like. It's a good question. There's a lot that goes into that, and as specific as possible. You have to know what you're good at, and you also need to know what your competitors maybe lack, and that varies by region. So I've seen this before where a certain campaign up in the Northeast, the 4 or 5 competitors in that area are different than maybe the competitors in the Southeast. So your ads play off of your advantages in that area, if that makes sense. So,
okay, so you could say your ad creative is largely dependent on where you're competitive within your space.
Yeah, that's a big piece of it for sure. Yeah, and looking at it obviously holistically, but then also individually, either by market, by driver type. gosh, and you can get very specific and granular, 50-mile radius by city.
Yeah.
Again, which goes back to the really difficult to set it and forget it.
You said it.
Okay. It seems like we're at a natural transition point. So we talked about branded search, and we're kind of getting into the idea of how you compare to the people that you compete with in your area. So let's move on to competitive search. We talked about competitive search is where, well, why don't you give a quick definition again of competitive search?
Yeah. Top 5, 10, that's typically what we ask. When we get a new client, we ask, hey, who else in your space do you compete with? Either who do you lose your drivers to?
Yeah.
Or when you have your orientation classes, 'cause a lot of fleets, kind of take that survey and just checks and balances. Where are they coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that market, and again, if they're searching for a competitor, you would like for your name to come up as well as an option. Hey,
Right.
if you're interested in this carrier, you should probably take a look at us as well.
Right. Is it important to make sure you can actually compete with said carrier?
Yeah, again, it's very similar to what we talked about on the brand side, but you need to know if other carriers are coming up, how do you match up, and then play to those strengths.
How easy is it to find out how you match up? Like as far as finding, I guess you're looking at pay, equipment, home time, things like that.
Yeah. A good fleet, good director of recruiting and their recruiters.
We'll have to cut that part.
Good fleet, good director of recruiting, and good recruiters should know your competition.
Right.
And that's not easy. It keeps changing. You should have good partners that you can, high level get information from. And obviously there's ways to get competitive analysis out there too, that you can research it.
We've been doing some of that lately where we're building kind of competitive analysis for our partners, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a big deal,
Yeah.
and it's not easy. It takes some time, and to your point, there's a lot that goes into it. So one example that I can think of is a specific carrier that's out 14 days at a time, but and that's considered OTR,
right?
But one of their competitors is out a minimum of 21 days. So although they may have similar trucks, or maybe the other carrier has a little bit better pay, that's something that they can play to their advantage in their ads.
Right.
Hey, if you're searching for this carrier, they're out 3 weeks. We're out 2 weeks at a time. Again, it's just knowing who you're competing with.
At what point within, like, I'm just getting started, or maybe I'm just doing brand search, when is it time that I start thinking about, I'm going to start trying to steal some of my competitors' search traffic?
I don't like the word steal, but I know what you're saying. Competitor traffic is more complex.
Redistribute.
No, you don't understand. It's very complicated.
And the piece you do need to know is, and anybody who's running campaigns, I would assume already knows this, but the way Google's looking at a campaign and your keywords, you're going to have a quality score. So the words that you use need to show up in your landing page and your ads and your creative. So a competitor campaign is going to be more expensive because you can't legally use your competitor's name in your landing page or your website.
Right.
So typically you're going to rank lower. If that actual client is running their own search, they're going to rank higher. So I guess, I don't know if I'm answering your question right, but it is tier 2. It's going to be more expensive. You wouldn't want to dive into competitor search if you still have room in your brand search to scale.
Well, I think we talked about this at one point, and you said kind of until you've eaten up all the low-hanging fruit on the brand side, there's no point to moving up to the brand, to competitive search, right?
I don't know. I would say it's worth building out the campaign and having it set.
Right.
But I definitely wouldn't run it at the same budget or even close, or even turn it on specifically. You may run that brand campaign, build out your competitor campaign, add a little bit of money to it, just see how it's going.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is definitely tier 2.
Okay. All right. So let's move on from competitive search to our final topic of general search, and let's define that one more time.
Yeah, sure. General is just going to be the those broad keywords. Sometimes general search or broad search, just truck driving jobs, trucking jobs, CDL jobs.
Okay.
Nothing specific,
and
or even local. Like you said, local trucking job.
So when is general search advantageous to me as a fleet? When do I need to be thinking around about that?
I don't have a good answer for that. It is, it's much more expensive because it's general. There's a lot more search queries that happen. So it is, you do have the ability to get leads that maybe aren't far enough down the funnel.
Right.
So typically your general search campaigns are reserved for large budgets or a large fleet that doesn't have a ton of requirements.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
If you need hazmat and 2 years experience with a TWIC card, and you're probably not going to do a ton of general search.
How do negative keywords play into all of this?
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. That's a good point.
I wrote it down.
Huge piece. Negative keywords play a big part, and again, knowing what else is out there is big.
Well, let's do a quick for the audience a definition of what negative keywords are.
Yeah. So Mercer is a good example. Mercer Transportation, great flatbed company out of Louisville, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a university in Georgia. I believe it's Mercer University.
Yep.
Saying that right? Mercer University.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are just bidding on Mercer terms, you're going to get a lot of irrelevant traffic. Werner, I think there's a ladder called Werner.
Yes, there is. I've climbed one.
Everybody wants this ladder. I live in an apartment with vaulted ceilings. Uh-oh.
Okay, so you're going to get some irrelevant traffic there as well. So negatively bidding on keywords that aren't in your industry or your space is a big deal.
Right. So the idea is like if it says Werner, but it adds in ladders, then I don't want to bid on that, right?
Again, you're getting very technical where this is where, I'd love to have a performance coordinator actually get into the nitty gritty where you talk about broad match keywords and specifically negative keywords and how big that list can be. I remember one time we had a client that was complaining about some unqualified leads, and we asked to take a look. Hey, let's jump on a call together and take a look at the negative keyword list.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been 600 keywords that we've added throughout the campaign that just we realized were irrelevant.
Wow.
So again, can't set it and forget it.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Let's see if I can sum it up, and then you add whatever you want.
Okay.
Search is extremely important. Everyone knows that. It's the number one way that drivers look for jobs. Correct?
Correct.
All right. So if I'm looking to get into search, the first thing and the least expensive thing to look at is brand search, where I'm bidding on my own company name. We want to try and eat up as much of that traffic as we can. We want to make sure that we understand our competition in the area.
That's right.
That our ads are specific, and just from a standpoint of our own reputation, we want to make sure that is as good as we can make it because that's going to affect our search.
Own your brand. That's right.
All right. So moving on to tier 2, once we kind of eaten up all the low-hanging fruit of people looking for us, maybe we look at the top 5 to 10 competitors in our area that we play with. We're going to maybe start to try and bid on their name to see if we can get some of that traffic as well, where we can highlight the areas where we win. So if the example you gave was, kind of a similar company, they're out 3 weeks at a time, I'm out 2 weeks at a time, that's something we can highlight, maybe steal some of that interest. Not steal.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
It's a touchy subject because I've had clients. We have a great industry and good people. And so this competitor campaign is a little bit of a, there's some uneasiness.
Right.
But it is an example would be if you're looking for a new car.
A new car!
Right.
If you're looking for an SUV, there's 3 or 4 that would fall into that category.
Yep.
And so it's just another example. Hey, if you're looking for a Sequoia, you may be interested in these 3 as well.
Yeah, good point.
So it really is just hey, I see that you're in this area and I see that you're looking for this job. We also offer this job.
Yeah.
It's a fine line. You're not really stealing. There's a lot of good options out there. So let's put my name in the hat if you're looking for that specific job.
Okay, that makes sense. And then finally, with general search, we're bidding on, broader search terms like truck driving jobs.
Right.
This is when we have need a lot of volume. We have the budget to put into it. It's much more expensive. It can be a little more complex and takes a lot to manage, but can be worth it if you have the budget and the, I guess what would be
the staff. We didn't cover that, but
Yeah.
typically a generic or general search campaign is going to have a large recruiting department.
Okay. One thing that we didn't quite talk about, there's been a stat floating around these here parts about the effect of branding campaigns on search. So I think that the specific stat was about videos and how videos affected the amount of branded search that we were seeing. So I think one thing we would just add in that is, while we talked specifically about search, it is kind of part of a larger ecosystem of our advertising and they all should work together.
That's right.
So we can't ignore the branding aspects just because we're doing search.
Yeah, and you said video, but even I guess we do run a lot of video in social.
Right.
But a lot of people are passively flipping through their feed in social, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But still, they go back to Google and do a search if they saw an ad that they're interested in.
Have you seen the Let's Get Social video?
I have not.
We need to watch that. All right. Well, I think that about sums it up for all things search. And if you haven't seen the Let's Get Social video, we'll put that link in there as well.
Let's get social.
Social.
With social media.
All right,
That's a
everyone,
real
I want you to
doozy.
stand up right
And
now, take out your
I think that'll
phones,
be it for
take
today.
a selfie with your neighbor. It's time to get social.
Since we're not actors, obviously.
Oh, I was just thinking if I needed a Biden moment where I actually talk to the American people, where do I go?
Come on, man.
Come on, man.